From the moment he stepped foot into the heart of the Citadel, Jackson Reed knew he was in a place where rules bent easily under the weight of power, and where generosity always came with strings wrapped in chains. The corridors of Varan Threx's shimmering fortress were alive with light, but lifeless in soul. Purple and blue neon panels buzzed overhead, casting warped shadows across polished black floors. His boots echoed softly through the echoing halls, scuffed and battered from too many conflicts. The glow of the place did nothing to hide how exhausted he was physically and otherwise. He stood before the throne of Baron Threx, an alien known as much for his extravagance as his ruthlessness. The Baron reclined with effortless arrogance on a throne made of crystal and chrome, flanked by heavily armed guards whose uneasy fingers hovered near triggers. His brilliant emerald skin shimmered faintly, and his silver eyes sparkled not with warmth, but pleasure at watching someone squirm. "Ah, Captain Reed," Threx purred, voice like sharpened silk, "you grace my hall once more. How lucky I am." Jackson's jaw clenched as he crossed his arms. "We had a deal, Threx. I cleaned out the raiders you've been whining about. I expect payment in actual credits," the Baron chuckled. It wasn't the kind of laugh that made you want to relax. It was the sort of sound that made you check for hidden guns behind your back. Yes, we did have an understanding," Threx said, lazily waving one jeweled hand. "But credits are such boring currency these days, aren't they?" Jackson didn't flinch, but he did take one step forward. "I'm not here to play your games. My ship's hanging on by a spark. I need fuel, tools, repairs. Pay me what I earned." Threx leaned forward slightly, his grin cutting deeper. "Oh, but I have something much more valuable than credits for someone like you." He snapped his fingers. Two guards immediately turned and disappeared behind a large arched door embedded with strange runes. Jackson exhaled sharply. "No more delays," he thought. "You don't want something I didn't ask for," he warned. But he trailed off when they returned, pushing a wheeled pallet between them, and on it, laid with disturbing delicacy, was a figure. His breath caught. She was draped in silken beige fabric which, although once fine, now clung to her like an afterthought. The corset top hugged her frame in ways impossible to ignore, but Jackson's eyes were drawn elsewhere. Her skin had the soft, muted green of moonlight over forest leaves. Her hair, dark as deep space, cascaded down the side of the cart like a silk curtain, tangled yet regal. In her eyes they were fire, sharp, aware, untouched by defeat, fierce even in stillness. "This," Threx said, gesturing with theatrical pride, "is Thala, my daughter, a royal jewel in a tarnished crown. An unfortunate accident has left her, less useful to me." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Useful," Threx shrugged, "paralyzed from the waist down, broken, but still lovely, don't you think? She takes up room. You, however, might find some value in her. Consider it a parting gift." That voice, the one Threx didn't expect to work, suddenly rang loud and clear. "You lunatic." Thala spat, her voice like a blade slicing through ice. "You think I'll just be handed over like cargo, Thala," Threx interrupted without turning. "Please don't be difficult while I'm being generous." The guards moved in. Before Jackson could speak, they were already loading her limp form onto a hover pad, as if she were no different from weapon crates. He watched stunned. "You're seriously giving away your daughter?" Threx stood, his cloak gleaming under the lights. "She stopped being my daughter when she stopped being an asset. You want your payment, there she is. Or do you want to leave with nothing at all?" Jackson's hand inched toward his blaster, but he stopped. Instinct told him not to pull it. Not here. Not surrounded. He could fight his way through this, but it would be a bloodbath. "Fine," he muttered, voice like dried steel. "But this isn't over. No," Threx agreed with a smirk. "It's only just begun." As the doors snapped closed behind them, Jackson walked alongside the cart. Her eyes were locked onto him now, narrowed and filled with fury. As soon as they were out of the throne room, she spoke again. "If you think I'm some broken princess you can pawn to the nearest slaver, think again." He blinked. Good to know you're not shy. She glared. I'm a lot of things, stranger. Helpless isn't one of them. Try and sell me, and I'll find a way to make you regret it, paralyzed or not. Jackson sighed. Look, I don't even know what just happened. I'm just trying to leave this place with my head still attached. We'll have that lovely conversation about your resale value once we're not on Baron. Maniac's lawn. There was a pause, then something passed across her face. Was that amusement? He wasn't sure. The ramp to his ship, the gray dancer, lowered with a creak. The guards shoved her cart into the cargo bay and left without a word. Jackson followed, shaking his head. His day had just gotten a lot more complicated. The gray dancer slid away from the citadel, its engines murmuring as the horizon vanished behind darkness. Jackson adjusted the course, fingers dancing across cracked controls. The old girl still flew, but she had her limits. In the hold behind him, now roughly turned into living quarters, Thalas sat propped up near one of the wall panels, silent for a long stretch. You're making a mistake, she said abruptly, her voice now calm, cold, and sure. If you're entertaining any thoughts about selling me, you'll regret it. Jackson didn't turn. Because I got that impression from your delightful welcome speech. I'm serious, she said, voice sharp. All the traders and smugglers you'd try to contact, they're connected to my father. Selling me would be selling yourself into one of his traps. His jaw tightened. She wasn't bluffing, he could feel it. Still, he kept it light. That so? Well, I guess I'll put away the for sale sign then. She didn't laugh. She leaned forward slightly and said, not as a threat, but almost as a proposal, I can give you something more valuable than credits. Your overwhelming charm, he said flatly. Information. That word crawled over the space between them and settled in like gravity. He turned slowly, staring at her. What kind of information? She met his gaze directly, her voice steady. About my father's trade deals, weapons stocks, hidden vaults, every dirty arrangement he's made with the very raiders you just cleared out. Proof that could make people pay, a lot. Jackson crossed the room, standing over her. The light flickered as they passed into drift. For a moment, he didn't speak. She was beautiful, yes, but more dangerous than any bounty he'd ever carried, and intelligence shone from her eyes like glass in the sun. Why betray him? He asked. He's still your father. Her laugh was soft, bitter. That man gave up on me when I no longer matched his version of heir. Since then, it's been nothing but failed arrangements with exiled barons and murder attempts wrapped as accidents. Giving me to you was attempt number. Who knows? Jackson leaned against the wall, and I'm just supposed to take all this on good faith. You don't really have options, she said coolly. Your reactor's a whisper away from shutting down. Whoever patched that drive core last did a terrible job. You need resources. Fast, my intel could buy you 3 new ships. Gods help her, she was right. He muttered under his breath, then, all right, talk. Her eyes narrowed not in skepticism, but calculation. Not yet. First, we make an agreement. Of course we do. I give you everything I have on him. In exchange, you help me get to a research station, one with neural networks and access to tech my father controls. There's a project, experimental spinal therapy. If I get access, I might walk again. Jackson raised an eyebrow. And what's to stop me from squeezing that info out of you and flying off? You, Jackson Reed. She said with a knowing smile, are many things gun for hire, skilled thief, a minor folk hero in the outer belts, but cruel, no, you're not that kind of man. He said nothing. Then she shifted her dress, falling slightly off one shoulder, not seductively, just casually, as though she'd spent years learning how to put people off balance. He looked away quickly. You're wounded, he said. She smirked. Only from the waist down, darling. Everything else works just fine. Jackson cursed to himself and ran his hand through his hair. Let's stick with business. What exactly are we talking about? Her voice softened. Enough blood on his hands to bankrupt 5 systems, details, documents, secrets that could burn entire corridors of power clean. You help me get what I need. I help you ruin the man who tossed me. I sighed like a broken tool. The room was quiet, and without meaning to, Jackson nodded. This wasn't how any of this was supposed to go. But maybe it was the only way forward now, and maybe it wasn't such a terrible detour after all. Thea's expression turned serious enough to bring down his entire operation, shipping manifests, corrupt official contacts, hidden accounts, everything, but we'll need to move fast once he realizes I'm actually helping you instead of being so sold off. He'll send hunters great Jackson checked their heading plotting a course away from the Baron's territory, and these medical facilities you mentioned on Station Nexus 9, it's not far, but it's heavily guarded. Getting in won't be easy, it never is. He found himself smiling despite the situation. You know, Princess, you're not what I expected. What did you expect? A helpless, sobbing noble who'd beg for rescue, something like that? Sorry to disappoint. She didn't sound sorry at all. Oh, you're not disappointing at all. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he saw her cheeks darken with what he assumed was the alien equivalent of a blush. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the ship's steady hum. Jackson found himself stealing glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking, admiring the way she held herself with dignity despite her circumstances. She caught him once and raised an eyebrow, causing him to quickly look away. We should reach neutral space in about 6 hours, he said, clearing his throat. You should rest. Are you offering to carry me to bed? Jackson read her tone was teasing, but there was something else there too, a hint of genuine vulnerability. If you need help, yes. He tried to keep his voice professional, but something tells me you figured out ways to manage on your own, smart man. She used her arms to adjust her position, movements graceful despite her limitations. But I might take you up on that offer someday. Station Nexus 9 loomed before them, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Jackson guided the stellar vagrant through the docking procedures, while Thela studied the station's schematics on a holographic display. The medical facility is in Section K7, she said, her fingers dancing through the projection. But there's a problem. The station's overseer is Lord Darius Krell. Jackson's hands tightened on the controls. The same Krell who runs half the illegal operations in this sector, the very same. TH's lips curved into a knowing smile. And he's been trying to acquire my father's weapons contracts for years. Before Jackson could respond, the ship's comm system crackled to life. A message scrolled across the screen, an invitation to meet with Lord Krell himself, along with an offer that made Jackson's eyes widen. 5 million credits, he whispered, just to hand you over to him. You TH's voice was carefully neutral. And are you tempted? Jackson read. He turned to face her, taking in her elegant pose despite her confinement to the makeshift seat they'd fashioned over the past days. He'd grown accustomed to her presence, to their verbal sparring matches that always seemed to carry an undercurrent of something more. You know what? Interesting, he said, ignoring her question. Krell's offering exactly what your father's weapons contracts are worth, almost like he knows what information you're carrying. Very observant. She adjusted her gown, the movement deliberately drawing his eye. Krell has spies everywhere, but he doesn't know everything, such as the fact that I've already transmitted copies of all my father's data to secure locations. Is if anything happens to me, it goes public. Her smile turned predatory. And such is the fact that the experimental medical technology I mentioned, it's not just for treating paralysis, it's a breakthrough in neural interface technology that both Krell and my father would kill to possess. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a gesture THLA had come to recognize as a sign of frustration. You couldn't have mentioned this earlier, would you have believed me? She reached out, catching his hand as he passed near her. Her skin was cool against his, sending an unexpected shiver through him. Besides, I needed to be sure of what, that you're the kind of man I thought you were. Her thumb traced patterns on his palm, the kind who sees beyond the surface, beyond a paralyzed alien princess who's supposedly nothing but a burden. Jackson found himself stepping closer, drawn by something in her eyes. And what kind of man is that? The kind who's about to help me steal revolutionary medical technology from under the nose of one of the sector's most dangerous crim lords. Her smile was both challenging and inviting. Unless you'd prefer those 5 million credits, he laughed, surprising them both. You know, Princess, I'm starting to think your father was an even bigger fool than I initially thought. Oh, her eyebrow arched elegantly. He saw you as damaged goods, a burden to be discarded. Jackson leaned down, his face close to hers. But I'm seeing potential, a mind sharp enough to maneuver both your father and Krell the courage to risk everything for a chance at mobility, and her breath hitched slightly, and someone who makes me forget she's supposed to be a burden every time she opens her mouth to challenge me. A deep emerald blush spread across her cheeks, but her eyes sparkled with mischief only when I opened my mouth. Don't start, he warned, but couldn't help smiling. We need to focus. How do you propose we get into this medical facility? THLA activated another holographic display, this one showing the station security patterns. Krell's invitation is actually perfect. He'll be expecting you to either reject it or try to negotiate instead. You'll accept while I use the maintenance tunnels to access K7. There's a service elevator that's perfect for someone who's good with their upper body strength. She demonstrated by easily lifting herself with just her arms. I'll need you to create a distraction when I reach the lab. Jackson watched her movements, admiring both her physical capability and her strategic thinking. And what happens when Kel realizes we've played him by? Then we'll either have succeeded or be dead. She shrugged, the movement causing her gown to slip slightly. But I don't think we'll fail. Such confidence in myself, always in you. Her eyes met his, suddenly serious, more than I expected to have in anyone. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Jackson cleared his throat. We'll need supplies. And you'll need something less conspicuous to wear. Are you saying my royal attire isn't suitable for crawling through maintenance tunnels? She affected an exaggerated pout. And here I thought you enjoyed the view. Princess THLA, she corrected softly. After all we've been through, I think you've earned the right to use my name, Thela. He tested the name, liking how it felt. We should prepare. Krell's not known for his patience, no. She agreed, her expression turning thoughtful. But then neither am I, especially not when I'm this close to walking again, to being able to. She trailed off, her meaning clear in the way her eyes traveled over him. Jackson swallowed hard and forced himself to focus on the mission plans. But part of him couldn't help wondering what it would be like to see her walk, to watch her move with the same grace she showed even while confined to sitting, to dance with her. Perhaps the stolen medical technology hums softly in the stellar vagrant's makeshift medical bay, its neural interfaces glowing with a soft blue light as they integrated with Falaz's nervous system. Jackson watched the diagnostic screens, his expression a mixture of concern and fascination. How does it feel? He asked, noting the flush spreading across her pale green skin. Strange. Thea breathed, her fingers gripping the examination table's edges. It's like every nerve ending is awakening at once. I can feel my legs again, but there's something else. She trailed off, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. The neural enhancement seems to be affecting more than just your motor functions, Jackson observed, studying the readings. Your entire sensory system is being amplified. You have no idea, she whispered, reaching for his hand. The moment their skin made contact, she gasped. Jackson, I need Dr. Ben's notes mention potential side effects. He interrupted, trying to maintain professional distance despite the electricity that seemed to spark between them. But this level of neural stimulation wasn't documented. Perhaps, thus said, her voice husky, he never tested it on someone of my species. Or perhaps, she pulled herself up with remarkable strength, the medical gown clinging to her now fevered skin. Perhaps he never tested it on someone who already had such strong feelings for their caretaker. Jackson swallowed hard. THLA, you're not thinking clearly. The neural enhancement is affecting your judgment. No, she cut him off, her grip on his hand tightening. It's not affecting my judgment. It's just intensifying everything I already felt, making it impossible to hide behind clever words and subtle glances anymore. The ship's environmental controls seemed to be malfunctioning because the temperature in the medical bay felt about 20 degrees higher than normal. Jackson tried to focus on the medical readings, but TH's presence demanded his attention. We need to monitor the integration process, he managed. Make sure there aren't any dangerous complications. The only dangerous complication, thus said, pulling herself closer to him with her enhanced strength, is that if you don't kiss me soon, I might actually combust. That's the neural enhancement talking, is it? She raised eyebrow. Then why is your heart rate elevated? Why are your pupils dilated? The enhancement might be amplifying my needs, Jackson, but it didn't create them. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as both frustration and attraction. This isn't how I wanted this to happen. How did you want it to happen? Her fingers traced patterns on his arm, each touch sending shivers through both of them. After a proper courtship, some noble ceremony. In case you've forgotten, I was literally given to you as a joke. Don't remind me. He growled. Why not? It's rather poetic, isn't it? Her smile was triumphant. My father thought he was punishing both of us. Instead, He gave me exactly what I needed, someone who saw my potential instead of my limitations, someone who helped me become whole again. You were never broken, Jackson said, fiercely, paralyzed or not. You were always the most capable person I've ever met. And now she gestured to her legs, which were beginning to respond to her commands now. That I can feel everything move, everything. Her voice dropped to a whisper now that every nerve ending in my body is screaming for your touch. Jackson groaned, you're going to be the death of me. Princess, on the contrary, she purred, I think I'm going to be the life of you now. Are you going to keep pretending this isn't exactly what we both want? Or he kissed her, the neural enhancement made every sensation explosive. TH's enhanced nervous system transmitted every touch, every breath, every heartbeat with crystal clarity. He could feel the rough stubble on his jaw, the heat of his skin, the way his pulse raced to match hers when they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily. TH's eyes were glowing with an inner light, a side effect of the neural enhancement responding to her elevated emotional state. Well, she said, her voice shaky but amused, I suppose that's one way to test the system's response to stimulation. We should really run more diagnostic tests. Jackson said, not sounding very convinced himself. Oh, I plan to run extensive tests. THLA assured him, her enhanced strength allowing her to pull him closer again. Very thorough, very detailed tests for science, of course. Of course, he agreed, unable to help smiling, but first we need to make sure the enhancement is properly integrated. I won't risk your health, no matter how persuasive you're being. Fine, she sighed dramatically, but you should know that according to these readings, physical contact with you appears to be stabilizing the neural patterns, almost as if we were meant to be compatible. She touched his face gently, as if my father's cruel joke was actually the universe's way of bringing together two pieces of a puzzle. That's a rather romantic way of looking at it. I'm a princess, she reminded him. Romance is in my blood, along with apparently an overwhelming attraction to stubborn human mercenaries who treat me like a person instead of a burden. The warning alarmed on the medical equipment startled both Jackson and THLA from their intimate moment. Red lights flashed across the diagnostic screens as TH's neural readings began to fluctuate dangerously. Something wrong, Jackson muttered, quickly scanning the data. The enhancement is destabilizing. TH's grip on his arm tightened as pain flickered across her features. I can feel it. It's like my nervous system is trying to reject the technology, but her eyes widened as she noticed something peculiar. Yeah, Jackson, look at the readings when you're touching me versus when you're not. He followed her gaze. The neural pattern display, so when they maintained physical contact, her readings stabilized almost immediately. The moment they separated, the destabilization began again. That's unexpected, he said, unconsciously pulling her closer as the readings improved. The enhancement seems to be using our physical connection as an anchor point, of course. It is. THLA laughed weakly, pressing herself against his chest. The universe has a rather twisted sense of humor, doesn't it? First, my father gives me away as a joke, and now the technology that's supposed to free me apparently requires me to stay physically bound to you. We need to find a more permanent solution, Jackson said, trying to maintain his professional focus despite the distracting warmth of her body against his. We can't exactly stay like this forever, can't we? Her tone was playful, but there was a hint of vulnerability beneath it. Would that be so terrible? Before he could respond, the ship's proximity alerts blared. Multiple vessels were approaching, and their energy signatures matched both Krell's forces and Baron's fleet. Perfect timing, Jackson growled, reaching for the ship's controls while keeping one arm firmly around THLA. Think you can handle navigation while I focus on weapons, plea? She scoffed, her fingers dancing across the nearest console. I was piloting luxury cruisers before you were stealing them. I never stole a luxury cruiser. No, what about the Celestial Dawn? That was a legitimate salvage. Their banter was interrupted by the first volley of enemy fire. Jackson jerked the ship hard to port, keeping thus steady against him as they evaded the attacks. Their unusual forced proximity actually worked to their advantage. They moved as one unit, anticipating each other's actions with uncanny precision. They're trying to hedge us in. THLA observed her enhanced nervous system, allowing her to process tactical data at remarkable speeds. Krell's ships are herding us toward my father's forces. Good thing we're not going either way then. Jackson grinned his free and activating a series of controls. Remember those modifications you called unnecessarily flashy last week? The ones that would probably blow up our engine? Her Eyes narrowed. Jackson, don't you dare. He dared the stellar vagrant engine, screamed as experimental thrust modulators engaged, sending them shooting their Warana through a gap in the enemy formation. That technically shouldn't have been possible to navigate. TH's enhanced reflexes were the only thing that kept them from clipping several pursuing vessels. You're insane, she gasped, half laughing, half terrified. Brilliantly, wonderfully insane, you love it. He shot back, then froze as he realized what he'd said. Yes, she said, softly, taking advantage of a moment of relative calm to turn his face toward hers. I do. The moment stretched between them, heavy with meaning, until another blast rocked the ship. We need to find somewhere to lay low, Jackson said, reluctantly focusing on their situation. Somewhere. We can research a permanent solution to the enhancement's stability issues. I might know a place, THLA said thoughtfully. There's a research in the Outer Rim. It's technically abandoned, but I know for a fact that a group of rogue scientists still operates there. They specialize in experimental biotechnology. Let me guess, not entirely legal research. Would I know about it? If it was, she smirked. Besides, they owe me a favor. I may have neglected to mention their location to my father when he was conducting one of his purges. Your father really is a piece of work, isn't he indeed? Though I suppose I should thank him. His latest cruel joke did lead me to you. She pressed closer, sighing contentedly as their contact further stabilized her neural readings. Even if we do need to figure out a way to make this connection permanent without requiring constant physical contact about that, Jackson said, his voice rough. Even if we find a way to stabilize the enhancement without this, would you want to stay with you? She finished his thought, her enhanced nervous system picking up his elevated heart rate. Jackson Reed, are you trying to ask if I want to make this arrangement permanent in a more official capacity? Maybe. He managed to sound both confident and uncertain, a combination Styla found endlessly charming. I mean, we work well together, and there's obviously a detraction, and you're the only person who's ever seen me as more than just a burden or a bargaining chip. She interrupted softly, the only one who saw my potential, who helped me realize it. Even if we find a way to stabilize this enhancement without constant contact, I'm not going anywhere. Another blast rocked the ship, reminding them of their pursuit. First things first, though, Jackson said, plotting a course for the Outer Rim. We need to lose our admirers and find those scientists of yours. Our admirers can certainly try to follow thus, said confidently, her hands moving in perfect sync with his across the controls, but they don't stand a chance against us together. The rogue scientist facility was a maze of abandoned corridors and repurposed laboratories hidden within an asteroid at the edge of known space. Dr. Elena Reed, the lead researcher, studied the holographic display of Falaz neural patterns with growing fascination. This is unprecedented, she murmured, adjusting her thick-rimmed glasses. The enhancement isn't just stable, it's evolving, and these hormone levels. She glanced at THLA, who was practically sitting in Jackson's lap at the examination table. Congratulations are in order, I believe. Jackson froze. What? THLA hand tightened on his arm, her enhanced nervous system practically humming with excitement. I'm pregnant indeed. Dr. Reed's smile was genuine, and it appears the pregnancy is actually helping to stabilize the neural enhancement. The fetus is acting as a natural bridge between your modified nervous system and Jackson's human biology. That's possible? Jackson asked, as his mind reeling. Apparently, it's more than possible, Dr. Reed replied. It's exactly what your body's needed. The enhancement was seeking stability through physical contact, but the pregnancy provides a permanent biological connection that satisfies those requirements. Thea shifted in Jackson's embrace, her skin practically glowing with a combination of joy and intensified desire that explains the increased need for contact. Dr. Reed nodded professionally. The pregnancy is amplifying the enhancement's effects on your hormone levels. You'll need regular, intimate contact with Jackson to maintain optimal stability. Think of it as prescribed therapy. Doctor's orders. TH's voice was innocent, but her eyes sparkled with mischief as she felt Jackson's heart rate spike. Precisely. Dr. Reed began gathering data tablets. I'll need to run more tests, but first. The facility security alarm suddenly blared to life. They found us, Jackson growled, already moving toward the door with THLA seamlessly matching his movements there. Forced proximity had made them extraordinarily coordinated. Take the emergency eggs. Dr. Reed ordered, activating security protocols. I'll wipe the data. They can't know about the baby. A successful human alien hybrid with enhanced neural capabilities would be too tempting a research subject for either Krell or Baron TH's face hardened at the mention of her father. He wanted to be rid of me as a burden. Now I carry the future of two species within me. Ironic, isn't it? Jackson guided them through the corridor, one arm around THLA, while the other held his weapon ready. His cruel joke led to something revolutionary. Speaking of revolution, Tyus said as they reached the hangar, I have an idea. Why do I feel like I'm not going to like this? Because you're learning, she grinned, pulling him toward the ship. But you'll do it anyway because you love me. That obvious, huh? As obvious as the fact that I'm carrying your child. Her expression softened. Our child, a perfect blend of human and alien potential. Reached the stellar vagrant just as the first explosion rocked the facility. Once inside, THLA immediately accessed the ship's communication array. What are you doing? Jackson asked, maintaining their necessary physical contact while preparing for launch broadcasting. Her fingers flew across the controls. To everyone, the truth about my father's weapons deals, Krell's operations, and most importantly, proof that humans and aliens can create something beautiful together. You're going to start a social revolution. While we're running for our lives, why not? Her eyes glittered with determination. My father thought I was worthless because I was paralyzed. Kel thought I was just a bargaining chip. But you saw my potential. Now it's time for everyone else to see it too. The ship lifted off as the first enemy vessels appeared in the ASD droid field. Jackson expertly wove through the deb, while Thela handled communications and defensive systems, their movements perfectly synchronized thanks to their constant contact. You know, Jackson said as they evaded another volley of fire. When I accepted you as payment for that job, I didn't expect to end up starting a family in a revolution. Disappointed? THLA asked, though her enhanced senses told her exactly how he felt. Thrilled. He corrected, pulling her closer as they made the jump to space, though we should probably discuss wedding plans at some point. I mean, if you want. Jackson read, she interrupted, turning to face him with an amused expression. I'm carrying your child. I literally can't function properly without your touch, and I'm about to overthrow my father's corrupt regime with you. I think we're a bit past traditional courtship. Is that a yes? That's a you're stuck with me forever, you wonderful human who saw all past my limitations and gave me everything I never knew I needed. I can live with that. He smiled, then tensed as another alarm sounded. But first we need to deal with the fleet of ships following us. THLA finished already adjusting their shields, please. They don't stand a chance against us now. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. Her hand rested briefly on her stomach before returning to the controls. We're fighting for the future, a future where no one has seen, as is a burden, where potential isn't limited by prejudice or disability. A future our child can be proud of. Jackson agreed, and together they turned to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their bonds stronger than ever. The stellar vagrant's communication array buzzed constantly with incoming messages. TH's broadcast had struck a chord across the sector, drawing responses from others who had faced similar discrimination, and those inspired by their story. Another resistance cell just made contact, Thela announced from her position in Jackson's lap, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Former military, discharged for various defects, and they want to help. Jackson nuzzled her neck, partly out of affection and partly because their constant need for contact had made such intimacy as natural as breathing. Your father's going to regret throwing away so many capable people. He already does, she purred, leaning back against him as waves of pleasure rippled through her enhanced nervous system. Our latest intelligence suggests, she gasped suddenly, her body tensing. The Thela, Jackson's concern turned to amazement at the ship's sensors began registering unprecedented energy readings emanating from her body. The neural enhancement, amplified by her pregnancy hormones, had begun manifesting in unexpected ways. Holographic displays around them responded to her thoughts. Day streaming faster than should have been possible. Her pale green skin glowed with an inner light, and her eyes blazed with newfound power. I can feel everything, she whispered. The ship's systems, the surrounding space, Jackson. I think I can sense the pursuing fleet's movements before they make them. He held her tighter, providing physical anchor she needed as her powers expanded. The pregnancy must be accelerating the enhancement's development. Dr. Reed's data suggested it might happen, but not this fast. It's not just enhancement anymore. More. THLA guided his hand to her slightly swollen abdomen. Our child. I can feel their consciousness merging with the technology, creating something entirely new, the perfect bridge Between human adaptability and alien potential, a warning alarm blared. Baron Thex's flagship had just emerged from hyperspace, leading a fleet of warships. Perfect timing for a test run, Jackson said. But THLA was already moving through their constant physical connection. He could feel echoes of her new abilities, the way she perceived space itself as a malleable medium, how she could predict trajectory and intention through some impossible combination of enhanced neural processing and maternal instinct. The stellar vagrant moved like a living thing under her control, effortlessly evading the first volley of fire, but instead of running, THLA did something unexpected. She reached out with her new abilities, touching the enemy ship's systems. "What are you doing?" Jackson asked, fascinated, showing them what they need to see. Her voice had taken on an ethereal quality, the truth about what happens when you underestimate those you consider broken. The enemy fleets, weapons powered down as their crews. Watch the data streaming to their screens, proof of Baron X's crimes, evidence of his betrayal of his own people, and most importantly, medical scans showing the miraculous development of THLA in Jackson's child. "They're standing down," Jackson observed, amazed. "All except your father's flagship, of course," thus smiled, though there was steel in her voice. "He's too proud to admit he was wrong about me. About humans, about everything." The Baron's voice crackled over the common system. "You dare turn my own fleet against me, you're nothing. But I should have disposed of years ago. No, Father THLA responded, her enhanced abilities carrying her words directly into every ship's communication system. "I'm what happens when someone sees potential instead of weakness, when love places cruelty, when a joke becomes a miracle." She turned to Jackson, her eyes glowing with power and desire. "I need you," she whispered the baby, "the enhancement, and everything is stronger when we're completely connected." He understood, immediately pulling her into a passionate kiss that sent waves of energy cascading through the ship's systems. Their bond, physical and emotional, amplified her abilities to new heights. Through their connection, they shared the experience of what happened next. Thelo reached out with her enhanced consciousness, supported by Jackson's unwavering presence, and simply shut down her father's ship, every system, every weapon, every engine, all disabled with a thought impossible. The Baron's voice was barely a whisper. "No," Tyler corrected him, "potential, the very thing you never saw in me." The thing Jackson recognized from the start. The Allied ships they contacted over the past weeks began emerging from hyperspace, surrounding the disabled flagship. Their timing wasn't coincidental. TH had coordinated everything through her enhanced abilities. "It's over, Father," she declared. "Your reign of cruelty ends today, and something new begins, a future where no one is discarded, where differences are celebrated, where jokes become destiny." Jackson held her close, marveling at how the woman he'd once considered a burden had become the most powerful force for change the sector had ever seen. "I love you," he murmured against her skin, feeling the energy of their bond surge. In response, "I know," she replied with a smile that managed to be both triumphant and seductive. "Now take me to our quarters. The pregnant, enhanced, former paralyzed princess needs some private time with her human before we finish revolutionizing the sector." The interrogation of Baron Thex revealed a truth more sinister than anyone had imagined. The weapons deals, the discrimination against the imperfect. It had all been part of a larger plan orchestrated by an ancient alien council known as the Purity Directive. "They've been manipulating societies for centuries," THLA explained to the assembled resistance leaders, her enhanced abilities allowing her to process the complex web of conspiracy, even as she maintained her necessary physical contact with Jackson, keeping species separate, promoting genetic purity, preventing the very kind of union that created this. She gestured to her now prominent belly, where their child's presence had turned her neural enhancement into something unprecedented. "The directive believes mixing species will weaken them." Jackson added his arm protectively around THLA. "They never considered it might make them stronger." The final confrontation took place in the heart of the directive's hidden station. THLA, nearly 8 months pregnant, stood with Jackson in the control center, their bond amplifying her abilities to levels that made even the ancient aliens pause. "You dare challenge millennia of careful genetic cultivation?" The directive's leader, of being of pure energy, demanded. "No," Tyler replied, her skin glowing with power as Jackson held her. "We dare to prove you wrong." Look through her enhanced stability. She showed them everything, not just data, but experience. The moment Jackson first saw her potential instead of her paralysis, the way their love had transformed a cruel joke into a miracle, the perfect BL of human adaptability and alien advancement growing within her. Impossible, the leader whispered. That's what my father said. THLA smiled. Before we showed him a better way, the battle that followed wasn't fought with weapons, but with truth. THLA and Jax and their bond, stronger than ever, used their connection to broadcast reality across the galaxy. Centuries of manipulation exposed the beauty of diversity, revealed the power of seeing potential where others saw only limitations. The directive's power crumbled not through violence, but through understanding. Species that had been kept apart for generations began reaching out to each other. Those who had been branded as imperfect found their unique traits celebrated rather than shunned. 1 month later, in the newly established Unity Medical Center that had once been in Baron Thea's citadel, THLR went into labor. Enhancement is going crazy, she gasped, clinging to Jackson as waves of sensation overwhelmed her enhanced nervous system. I can feel everything focus on me, he murmured, their years of constant physical contact making their connection deeper than ever. Just like always, the birth itself was a miracle that drew observers from across the galaxy as their child entered the world. Falaz's neural enhancement pulsed with unprecedented power, touching every monitoring system in the facility. Their daughter was perfect, pale green skin, like her mother, her father's dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of both species. The moment she was placed in TH's arms, with Jackson holding them both, every piece of technology in the room responded to her presence. She's beautiful, Jackson whispered, watching their daughter already beginning to show signs of both enhanced neural capabilities and human adaptability. She's hope. THLA corrected her own powers, harmonizing with their child's living. Proof that the greatest potential comes from embracing differences instead of fearing them. Baron Thex, now reformed and working to undo the damage he caused, was permitted to meet his granddaughter. The moment he saw her, his previous prejudices crumbled completely. I was such a fool, he admitted, watching the child already beginning to manipulate nearby systems. With a thought, I gave away my greatest treasure as a joke, never seeing the potential for something extraordinary. That's the past, Tyler said, firmly leaning into Jackson's embrace as their daughter demonstrated abilities neither species had ever shown before. The future is about seeing potential everywhere in everyone, as if understanding. Their daughter reached out with both her tiny hand and her developing ability, touching her grandfather's heart in more ways than one. The story of the paralyzed princess and the human who saw her potential became legend, taught in schools across the galaxy. As the moment everything changed, species began intermingling freely, celebrating their differences rather than fearing them. The neural enhancement technology, refined through understanding of Fa's pregnancy, had helped countless others overcome their limitations, but perhaps the greatest legacy was the simplest: the truth that love sees potential where others see problems, and that sometimes the crucive of human and alien abilities. I never did get paid for that original job, Fella laughed, pulling him down for a kiss that sent pleasant shock waves through both their enhanced nervous systems. Oh, my love, you got something far better. Everything, he corrected, holding his family close. I got everything.